The radio crackles at 14:10 hours. A United States Navy destroyer is watching a massive cargo ship that refuses to stop. The ship is called the MV Tuska. She is 275 meters long. That is the same as 3 football fields lined up end to end. She weighs more than some aircraft carriers. She is carrying containers stacked 7 stories high on her deck. And she is heading straight toward Iranian waters at full speed. The Americans have been calling her on the radio for hours. They are using every channel available. Emergency channels, military channels, commercial shipping channels. Every single transmission is being recorded. The Tuska does not answer. Not once. She just keeps moving. Straight ahead, like the warship beside her does not exist. 6 hours later, the United States Navy does something that shocks the entire world. And the question every military planner from Beijing to Moscow is asking right now is this: was America always willing to pull that trigger, or did Iran just make the biggest mistake of this entire crisis? Welcome to Dr. Elena Harris. If you are new here, this channel breaks down the biggest military and geopolitical stories on the planet in plain language. Make sure you are subscribed because what comes next will change how you see this story completely. To understand what happened on April 19th, 2026, you need to understand what a naval blockade actually means in real life. Most people hear the word blockade and think of something from a history book. A line of old wooden ships, cannons, flags, something far away and long ago. This was none of that. Think of a naval blockade like a locked gate on the only highway into a country. Every truck that tries to get through gets stopped and turned back. The gate is real. The guards are armed. And they have already turned back 25 trucks before yours even arrives. That is what the United States Navy had been doing in the Persian Gulf since April 13th. Every ship trying to enter or leave an Iranian port was being intercepted. Every single one was being told to turn around. And every single one before the Tuska had done exactly that. 25 ships. 25 captains who looked at an American destroyer and made a smart decision. The Tuska's captain made a different one. The Tuska was not just any cargo ship. She was flagged as Iranian. She was owned by a company that had been under United States Treasury sanctions since 2012. That means for 14 years, the American government had officially said this company is off limits. No business, no access, no exceptions. And here she was on April 19th, steaming at 17 knots directly toward Bandar Abbas, one of Iran's most important ports. 17 knots sounds slow. But for a ship that size, it is like watching a 6-story building move through the water at highway speed. Stopping her was never going to be simple. The USS Spruance picked her up on radar first. The Spruance is an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer. She is over 500 feet long. She carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, torpedoes, anti-ballistic interceptors, and a 5-inch naval gun on her forward deck that can fire 20 rounds every single minute at targets more than 13 miles away. She had been enforcing this blockade for 6 days already. Her crew knew the procedures. They knew the rules. And they knew exactly what would happen if the Tuska kept going. At 14:10 hours, the Spruance sent the first warning. Motor vessel Tuska, this is United States Navy warship on your starboard side. You are approaching a restricted zone. Alter course immediately. Nothing. The Tuska kept moving. The Spruance transmitted again. And again, 1 hour passed. 2 hours. 3. The sun started going down over the Arabian Sea. 4 hours? 5. The Tuska never responded. Not a word. Not a signal. Not even a change in speed. She was 275 meters of steel defiance moving through the water as if the most powerful navy on Earth was completely invisible. At the 6-hour mark, the tone of the American transmissions changed completely. This was no longer a request. Motor vessel Tuska, this is your final warning. Vacate your engine room. We are prepared to subject you to disabling fire. Read that again. Vacate your engine room. We are prepared to subject you to disabling fire. That sentence is not a threat. That sentence is a notification. It means the decision has already been made. The only question left is whether the crew of the Tuska gets out of the way first. The Tuska did not change course. The crew did not evacuate the engine room. She just kept going. So here's the question you need to be sitting with right now. What does a United States Navy destroyer actually do when a ship that size refuses every warning for 6 straight hours? Subscribe to Dr. Elena Harris right now and hit the notification bell. What happens next is the part most channels are not covering, and you need to hear it. At 20:22 hours, the USS Spruance opened fire. The 5-inch Mk-45 naval gun on the Spruance's forward deck locked onto the Tuska's engine room. The gun crew had already done every calculation. Range, wind, wave height, the exact spot on that enormous steel hull where a shell would do the most damage to propulsion and nothing else. The order came. Fire. A 5-inch naval gun is not something you hear from a distance. It is something you feel. The shell weighs 70 pounds. It travels at over 2,600 feet per second. When it hits steel, it does not bounce. It goes through. The first round hit the Tuska's engine room dead center. The second followed. Then a third. The goal was not to sink her. Sinking a 275-meter ship in the middle of an international waterway creates an environmental disaster and a legal nightmare that takes years to clean up. The goal was surgical. Destroy the engines. Stop the ship. Take control. It worked. The Tuska's engines went silent within seconds. The fuel lines were ruptured. The cooling systems were destroyed. The propulsion machinery was gone. A ship that had been moving at 17 knots through the Arabian Sea simply stopped. Dead in the water. A floating building with no power and no way to move. 15 kilometers to the north, a second American ship had been waiting for exactly this moment. The USS Tripoli is not a destroyer. She is something bigger. She is an amphibious assault ship. She weighs 41,000 tons. She carries aircraft, vehicles, and an entire Marine Expeditionary Unit on board. On her flight deck, 2 MH-60 Seahawk helicopters had been sitting with their rotors already spinning. The Marines inside were already strapped in. Helmets on, weapons ready. They had trained for this exact scenario dozens of times. When the call came from the Spruance that the Tuska was disabled, the Seahawks lifted off immediately. The flight to the Tuska took less than 3 minutes. This moment matters because of what happened 38 years earlier in this exact same region. In April 1988, after an Iranian mine nearly sank the USS Samuel B. Roberts, the United States launched Operation Praying Mantis. In just 8 hours, American forces sank or disabled roughly half of Iran's entire combat navy. Frigates sent to the bottom, fast attack boats destroyed, coastal platforms eliminated. The message was simple and permanent. The United States does not accept threats to shipping in the Persian Gulf. Not then, not now. What happened on April 19, 2026 was not Operation Praying Mantis. It was one ship, one boarding, but the philosophy was identical. Warn first. Document everything. And if compliance does not come, respond with speed and total precision. The Seahawks approached the Tuska from the rear, using the ship's own superstructure as cover. The Marines fast roped down from 40 feet in the air. In full combat gear, carrying 60 pounds of equipment each, they descended those ropes in about 3 seconds per man. It is not a gentle landing. It is a controlled fall onto a hostile deck in the dark. Within 30 seconds, 12 United States Marines were standing on the deck of the Tuska. 2 Marines went straight to the bridge. 4 moved toward crew quarters. 2 took positions covering the main deck. The rest cleared the engine room, making sure no crew members were trapped in the space that had just been hit by naval gunfire. The entire operation, from the first Marine touching the deck to the ship being declared secure, took less than 10 minutes. The Tuska was now in American custody, and CENTCOM released the video almost immediately. Night vision footage, Seahawks approaching through the dark, fast ropes dropping, Marines moving across the deck with the kind of calm precision that only comes from training something hundreds of times until it is automatic. They released that footage on purpose. They wanted Tehran to see it. They wanted Beijing to see it. They wanted every nation watching this crisis to understand exactly what happens in the Persian Gulf when you test American resolve. For the military picture, this changes the enforcement equation completely. Before April 19th, Iran could tell its commanders that the American blockade was a pressure tactic, not a shooting war. After April 19th, that argument is gone. The Americans fired. They boarded. They took a ship. Every captain approaching the blockade line now knows what the end of that road looks like. For the economic picture, the effects spread far beyond Iran. Oil prices had already surged past $100 a barrel since the blockade began. Shipping insurance for the region had become almost impossible to get at any price. Every day the strait stays disrupted costs the global economy hundreds of millions of dollars. The Tuska seizure did not reopen the strait, but it showed the world that America is not going to wait forever. For the political picture, Iran's response was loud and predictable. State media called it piracy. Iran's vice president issued a statement warning of high costs for everyone. But 2 days later, when peace talks were scheduled in Pakistan, Iran's delegation did not show up. The ceasefire that had been holding expired without a deal. Words are easy, showing up to the table is harder. 2 days after the Tuska, the Pentagon announced the detention of another tanker, the MT Tiffany, in the Bay of Bengal. Not the Persian Gulf, the Bay of Bengal. The statement from American officials was short and clear. United States forces will pursue maritime enforcement anywhere they operate. Not in one region, anywhere on Earth. Here is where everything stands. Iran believed that a massive cargo ship could simply ignore a 6-hour warning from the United States Navy and reach port safely. The Tuska proved that belief wrong in the most visible way possible. The ship is in American custody. The crew is detained. The video is on every screen on the planet. In 1988, Iran's supreme leader said that accepting a ceasefire felt more bitter than drinking poison. He drank it anyway. The strait reopened. The war ended. History does not copy itself exactly, but the pattern running through 1988 and 2026 is the same. When Iran tests the United States Navy in open water, the test does not end well for Iran. The Persian Gulf is not fully open yet, but the balance of power that kept it closed just shifted in one very loud, very visible 10-minute operation on the deck of a disabled cargo ship in the middle of the Arabian Sea. This is not over. Subscribe to Dr. Elena Harris so you never miss what happens next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Iran will back down now, or is this crisis about to get worse? We will see you in the next one.